Host Kim Davis. It's Tuesday, October the 27th. We are officially in the fourth quarter of 2020. Whatever it has been for you, we are winding down, but you still have time to do some things in 2020. Man, it has been quite a start to this decade, but here we are today. And if you're under the sound of my voice, thank you for being here. And I'm just grateful for that. So I'm going to start the show with, I don't know how many, if you follow me on Facebook, you may have seen my sister post yesterday that my mother had surgery. I'm proud to report the surgery went well. She's recovering, but man, this whole hospitalization time right now is already, significant and kind of tricky especially for senior citizens, but especially during COVID, because you can't, wow, my hair's kind of lopsided, y'all. Because you can't spend the night with your loved ones. At least you can be there during surgery. So my mom's surgery went well. Many of you have asked, and so I'm saying it here. Thank you for your prayers. I believe prayer works, and she is recovering. The surgery went well. We didn't get her in a room last night until 10:30. She went into surgery at 11:30. She was recovered, probably back in recovery by, I don't know, 2 o'clock maybe. And maybe the surgery didn't start till noon, I'm not sure. But at any rate, because they're so busy, it took that long. They are releasing people from hospitals sometime into the night. So they were prepared. I mean, her surgery wasn't an emergency surgery. They knew she would be there, but that's how busy the hospitals are right now. And so you can't give a room out until the person there has been released, discharged, their ride has picked them up, which was the case. And so, yeah, I was able to stay so long with her because visiting hours end at 6 p.m. I, of course, in a very nice way, refused to leave until I got my mother settled in a room. So, that's how I said, I'm not going to try to spend the night, but I'm not going to leave her until she's settled in a room. I can get her settled, meet the nurse and all that kind of stuff. And so that's what happened. And then visiting hours start back this morning at 6, and one of my other sisters is there, the one who posted, Sylvia. So I start the show with that. I am grateful that mom is doing well, and we hope that her recovery is speedy, because she does not want to be in the hospital. She's very concerned about being in the hospital, especially during COVID. And she's never been in a hospital by herself where she stayed overnight alone. So this is not something that was a very necessary surgery. And I've been waiting, like, no, mom, you can't have it. But since clearly COVID is going to be with us for a minute, I needed to make sure that she had the surgery so that she can feel better. So mom as well. I didn't even mention about the show today, the usual promotion that I do. One of my friends, Chris Gardner, who's going to join us a little bit later to talk some basketball, reminded me of that, and it's because my day just was long and then started back early. So welcome. Good morning, Charles Lamar Drayden. Always good to see you. So as we wind down today, here's what I want to do on today's show. We're going to recap just a bit about the Texans, because many of you who follow me are in Houston, and that is one of the teams you care about. So I'm going to do that. And thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate that. I said to start the show, prayer works. I believe in it. And so I appreciate those of you who are continuing to pray for my mom. The surgery was just the first part. And so, yeah, if you will continue to pray for her healing, recovery, and so that she can come home soon and not be in the hospital. That makes her, she's very nervous about being there. But we're going to talk some Texans. I'm going to play a couple of clips for you. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball. Chris Gardner of Houston Roundball Review is going to join me. We're going to talk about some Rockets stuff. I talked about Rockets Sunday night on Sports Extra with the crew over at Channel 11. We talked about Daryl Morey and what's ahead for this Rockets team. And then I'm going to end the show with a little bit of civics, because I think it's really, really important. And like I said last week in our civics lesson, it is not because I don't think you all know. I just want to make sure that as we're in this election season, and not just until next Tuesday, but, I'm talking about being, politically savvy throughout the year. And so I think it's important to understand some of these so that if you haven't voted, you can make an informed decision between now and the end of the election season next Tuesday. But also after the votes are all cast and counted, that you also know some ways to move forward, because it doesn't stop with casting a vote. We have to be engaged throughout the process. So I want to talk about that a little bit later in the show. So that's what we're doing today. The scroll you see across the bottom of the screen is KimmyTreats.com, where you can go and start placing your orders for your holiday popcorn. And I am working on really launching this subscription box. I hope to have it launched. I plan to have it launched. See, I have to put it out here so you guys will keep me accountable before the holiday, where you can order and then you can just get that Kimmy Treats box showing up every month. Or you can order it for somebody as a gift. Or if you have clients or friends that you want to send gifts to, popcorn is a great gift to send. It travels well and it's just fun. Like, who doesn't love popcorn? And people are staying in and they don't want to get out a lot. So send them some gourmet, really tasty popcorn. All right. It's non-GMO. The products are really, the ingredients are really fresh and clean. And yes, it is vegan, but the most important thing is that it's really good. All right. So that's what you can do. Go to KimmyTreats.com. So the Texans, of course, lost on, hey, that's my sister Sylvia, who is at the hospital with Mom. She says she's watching. Good morning, Mom. I love you. I'm glad that you're able to watch. Do everything the doctors and Sylvia tell you so you can come home soon. So people are sending you prayers, Mom. So yes, we're going to jump into what happened with the Texans on Sunday. Lost to the Green Bay Packers. And before we get into that, they didn't look great, but I don't know how many people coming into the season, if you follow football, would have picked the Texans to win that game, right? The Packers, that's a pretty good team. Okay, so I want us to not be. So yes, you're discouraged because the team, if you follow the Texans, your team is 1-6. There's no easy way around that, right? So I just want to pull up the final score, because the final notes, because I hate to guess in terms of what happened. Your team's 1-6. That's not great. They haven't looked particularly impressive, and Sunday's game was no different, right? So the final score was 35-20. And they had some flashes, some chances, but they just made, in the past, they haven't been able to stop the run. On Sunday, they weren't able to stop the passing. They weren't able to stop the passing game. The Texans still have a problem tackling. And so if you follow football, you're going, but Kim, that's one of the basics, right? They should be able to tackle. I'm just telling you, that's a problem. And, they've got a lot of new pieces. There was no real preseason, a training camp. I am not making excuses, but the team, and they lost their best receiver. I know people say you got to move on from the DeAndre Hopkins story, but okay, if you talk about the offense not being able to make some things happen occasionally, that's a huge change. So I'm going to let you hear from Deshaun Watson, who, had a good game statistically, but I am sure that Deshaun would. So here are the final stats. Deshaun Watson completed 29 of 39 passes for 309 yards. He, of course, was sacked 3 times. He threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. His passer rating was 114. I would be willing to bet you that Deshaun would much rather. He said it. I mean, individual stats, okay, 300-yard passing game, but he wants to win. This is really very unfamiliar territory for him. So I'm going to let you hear from Deshaun Watson as he talks about, let's see here. Let me let you hear from Deshaun.
Most definitely. I mean, there's things that we can, definitely do and continue to improve detail-wise. And just kind of, making sure we're stepping on that. But, I agree with him. there's definitely ways where we can, continue to try to improve and try to be as consistent as possible. But yeah, most definitely.
And then also, Deshaun, just as a leader of this team, can you just kind of describe what this is like for you being in this situation? I know we talked a little bit about it during the week. This is kind of unfamiliar territory for you, but can you kind of put it into words for us what this is like being 1-6?
It sucks, honestly. Man, this is new to me, so I'm going through it just like everyone else. It's my first time experiencing something like this, so I'm just laying on the fly, trying to stay positive, continue to lead the guys, continue to come to work each and every day and try to improve, and just trying to find ways to win. Just continue to play hard, do my job, and not try to do too much, and just kind of continue to do that. So, yeah, it's definitely new to me, and I'm just trying to, find my way and continue to improve, and, have guys around me build me up, and I build them up, and, we just stick as one.
That was Deshaun Watson. That was him after the game on Sunday. And it was edited a little bit because what he said was, this ish sucks, okay? He's a champion, right? He's a winner. So being 1-6 is something that is very unfamiliar to him. I'm fine with him being angry about that because they are 1-6, and that's pretty bad. Now they have a bye week this week. They're on the road after that. So now's the time for them to kind of regroup and figure some things out. And many of you may have seen the JJ Watt interview, or, he was noticeably frustrated and not very happy. He didn't have a lot to say in the post-game interview. And so I'm going to let you hear from JJ Watt as well. I don't play a lot of JJ on this show, but I think it's worth.
JJ, what's it like chasing Aaron Rodgers?
JJ, what's it like chasing Aaron Rodgers?
Find out he's already completed a great pass down the field.
Find out he's already completed a great pass down the field.
What do you think that's like? Not great. That's like not great.
Mark Berman.
JJ, we've kind of asked these questions several times this year. 1-6.
Now you're going into the bye week at 1-6. What are your feelings about this team going forward?
Gotta get better.
Aaron Wilson. As a leader, as a veteran on the team, what do you tell your teammates? As a veteran on the team, the way the state of the season, state of the team right now. Holding it together. As far as holding it together.
Show up to work and do your job.
Brandon Scott.
Hey, JJ, how would you assess your level of confidence?
JJ, how would you assess your level of confidence in this defense and in this team right now, considering where everything is?
Man, we're 1-6. You are what your record says. 1-6. You are what your record says you are.
And
John?
also,
Go ahead, Brandon.
Also, I understand that you don't coach or play DB.
I understand that you don't coach or play DB, but could you speak to how the injury to Bradley Roby just kind of threw things off for you guys in terms of whatever your game plan was today?
I know nothing about that. No, I know nothing about that.
John?
Talk about the way Rodgers played today, and
Talk about the way Rodgers played today, and
play earlier, and
compare it to the ways you've seen him play earlier, and when you guys played against him.
He played very well.
Okay, that's enough. So that was JJ, right? Like I said, he wasn't feeling it. He was not. And what do you say to that? So then there's talk, the experts around the league and are like, yeah, get him out of here because, he deserves better. And, a lot of people should have won, right? You should have done better when Andre Johnson was here. What about Arian Foster? There've been other players that have been through. Deshaun Watson, just signed a deal now and is here. And so then there were questions. There was a line of questioning that I tweeted about that you're asking players about the trade deadline and their thoughts about it. And I'm like, well, what do you think they're going to say, right? They have to, if they were to say anything other than I'm not following that, I'm focusing on winning now, then you're going to excoriate them because they're not focused on being in the now. So sometimes I feel like the media, and I am a part of the media, hopefully I'm not that part of the media, will do and say things that, we just have to do better. And I understand you're trying to get clicks and stories, but what do you expect them to say? And that is why players sometimes are very annoyed. Now, quite frankly, because you're 1-6, you do have to meet the media. It is part of it. You can't just meet the media when things are going well. So you have a JJ Watt who shows up who would have rather have been having a root canal by the looks and sounds of it. But that is what it is. On the other side, here's what the Packers did. Aaron Rodgers completed 23 of 34 passes for 283 yards, but he threw 4 touchdowns, and his passer rating was 132. So yes, Deshaun Watson had 309 yards of passing yards, but it clearly was not enough. On the receiving side, there were 4 receiving touchdowns, right? So in terms of rushing, the Texans gave up 96 yards of rushing. So they didn't get beat by the run this week, but they couldn't stop the pass. And they could not get offense going when they really needed it. They couldn't do that. So that's where we are. It's the bye week. And let me tell you what happens when they come back from the bye week. And then we're going to jump to basketball shortly. And where's the rest of the schedule? So they're pretty much almost halfway through. 1-6. They have a bye week this weekend, and then they go to Jacksonville, the only win they've had. They will play at Jacksonville. Then they will go to Cleveland and play the Browns before coming back home to host the Patriots, a team that's also in a bit of disarray. All right, so that's what we have in terms of Texans. We'll talk about it. If you have things you want to know, it's a bye week. I will do some interviews later with the assistant coaches that I'll run this week, but there won't be a whole lot of Texans talk this week unless something happens. But that's what we have. The other thing that I mentioned the Patriots. Cam Newton was benched on Sunday in the Patriots game, and he said in a radio interview, he said, I realized he knew he deserved to be benched, and he realizes that if things don't change, he could lose his starting spot. There was a lot of, turmoil. I don't know if that's the right word in the National Football League. There was a lot going on, okay? And as they also try to continue to manage COVID, it is a season just like a year like none other, all right? But we're going to jump from football to basketball, and I mentioned earlier I was going to bring in a friend and colleague. There we go. Chris Gardner, who is the publisher and owner of...
Sis, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Let me see. I can hear you. Let me make sure I'm not on anything. It looks like you should. I see the audio going. Can you hear me now? So it's not muted. That unmutes me. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Still don't hear you.
Okay, so let me do this. Can you guys at home hear me? I'm gonna hide you for a second while I try to figure out what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna kind of redo this. So you guys hold on a second. I'm gonna reload the site just to. Okay, so let's see if that helps. All right, can you hear me now?
No.
So the people at home can hear me, Chris. So it's something on your end, but I can hear you. So I don't know what it is.
I see what Patrick is saying. Let me try a different setup, and I'll try that.
All right. I'm going to do this while you do that, and you let me know. Give me a signal when you see me. Thank you, Sylvia and Patrick. And they can hear you as well. So we're going to come back with Chris Gardner. We're going to talk about the Rockets, okay? Patrick said his computer is not linking with his headphones. Okay, let's see this. You always need another TV guy to help you figure out what's going on. All right, can you hear me now? Now I can't hear you. Chris, say something. What are you doing over there? So maybe unplug your headphones. Okay, now talk. Nope. He's been on a lot. I don't know why. Yeah, it's something on your end. So it's something with your headphones not linking, because now we can't hear you. Before we could hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, but I can't hear you. Okay, so let me do this. Chris, play around with your microphone and let me know. And I see you, but I can't hear you. When Chris joins us, we're going to talk Rockets. But before we do that, I definitely want to mention, I mentioned it on the Channel 11 show on Sunday night. You know, the Rockets are heading into this next season, at this point, without a head coach, without their longtime general manager, Daryl Morey, who has been, you know, has had a, you know, listen, when you look at what Daryl's done in his tenure of being here, I think it was 13 years, the Rockets have never had a losing season. Let me try Chris again and see if he can join us. All right, Chris, now see, can you hear me? But I cannot hear you. We can't hear you. Okay, we can't hear you. I'm gonna drop you back out again. Let me know when you, whatever the other headphones you had, we could hear those headphones. On these headphones, we can't hear you. So I don't know, but I'm guessing it's on your end. Daryl Morey, we talked about him on the Channel 11 show, Sports Extra, on Sunday night. And when you look at, how do you look at his tenure as the general manager of the Houston Rockets? The Rockets have never had a losing season under Daryl Morey. And I think we take it for granted, but that's a big deal, right? And they have the second most winning, they won the second most games of any team in the league behind the Spurs during the regular season over that stretch of time, right? So there are seasons when you look at like the historic season with the Golden State Warriors, they're great seasons, but in terms of just his body of work, it's been pretty impressive, right? So Daryl Morey has decided to step down, and I don't know, we bantered around the question, you know, what is it? Does the timing seem kind of curious? I said the timing is kind of curious for me, but maybe he wants to spend time with his family. Maybe he just felt like we can't get over the next point. I don't know what it is. And perhaps, let's be honest, the owner, Tillman Fertitta, who has his business is the hospitality industry, which has been heavily hit under COVID during this pandemic. And there've been conversations and mumblings or rumblings about his financial stability. I don't know whether that is accurate, or if that's reason for concern. I know that Daryl, I saw one local publication say that he's staying until his contract ends in November. His contract is not ending in November, right? He just signed a new deal. And so he's walking away from a hefty amount of money. I don't know what the financial arrangement was. I don't know if it was the China issue from last year that really never went away. I have no idea what it is. But here's some things I think you can say about this Houston Rockets team and what you can expect. You know, what you can think might have been the issue, right? You know, we do know that they got to the conference championship. The last time they got there was 2018. They've made a lot of moves. They have hitched their wagon to James Harden, and he's their guy. You know, of course, they brought in last year Russell Westbrook. And Tillman has said, I would not trade either one of them. And I think that sounds great. And that could be true. But it also could not be true. Because if they're going to do anything different to this roster, they're going to have to trade one of the big guys. You know, they don't have any draft picks, so they can't get anybody out of the draft and come in that way. They're cap heavy. And I know the last thing Tillman wants to do is get deep into that luxury tax area. And so in order to create some space, they're going to have to move somebody or stand pat. If you think the team that you have can get you where you need to go. So last year when they made the moves to go to this small ball approach, that's the personnel that you have. So are you committed? Are you saying that you're going to win with that? And are you going to saddle if you will, the next head coach with that roster and that philosophy, because that's what you built. That's who you have on this team. We will have to see. You know, Jeff Van Gundy's a name that we continue to hear, and John Lucas. So let me say this. I also heard somebody say, well, you know, Van Gundy and Lucas are both older and probably can't relate to the current younger guys. Now, I'll give you that with Jeff Van Gundy. Perhaps he cannot. All right. He's been calling basketball games. I don't know why he'd want to leave the booth, but whatever. But John Lucas is a different story. John Lucas is the guy who really has the best relationship in terms of working relationship with these guys day in, day out. John Lucas was really instrumental, from my understanding, when they were in the bubble and getting things worked out to where the players and owners and, you know, when they decided, yes, we're going to continue to play, John Lucas was instrumental in that. And a lot of guys, not just with the Rockets, but around the league, respect John Lucas and have, you know, leaned on him for, you know, advice and counsel, have worked out with him in the summers in his program. And so John Lucas, you know, may be close to the age of Jeff Van Gundy, I'm not sure, but his relatability is very different. So I will say to you that John Lucas, you know, could be, you know, he could be the next head coach, and it would not be an awful move. So if you say, well, Kim, I'll look at his record. He never got to 500. You're absolutely right. But you have to also look at the teams he took over and what he had to work with. I think whenever you talk about somebody's record, and this isn't just because I know John personally, this is just, it is what it is. You've got to look at what did that head coach, what did that general manager, what did they have to work with in terms of moving the organization forward? I think there is a good case to be made for John Lucas, and we'll see. And especially if, you know, if it is true that your two stars, or especially James Harden, has to really sign off on whoever the coach is going to be. A lot of uncertainty around this Houston Rockets team. Let me put a pin in the Rockets conversation there and say something that I also mentioned in the Channel 11 show on Sunday night. BJ Johnson, you know, Brent BJ Johnson, whose birth name is Sheffrey Brent Johnson, hence the BJ. I knew him as BJ for many, many years. BJ passed away last week, and he, you know, he'd been in the NBA for 15 years. Is that the case? Over the past 26 years, he'd been one of the most respected and admired scouts throughout the NBA. That was in the program, in the obituary, which is true. I can't remember covering the Rockets and not knowing BJ. It was really sad that, you know, he had a bicycle accident, and from what his wife says, he rode his bike, and people that knew him, he rode his bike 25 or 30 miles every day, and he was riding his bike, and it looks like there was something in the pavement, hit it, and had this tragic accident. And it looks like maybe he died instantly. That's, you know, but man, you can't really talk about the Rockets this week. I went to the memorial the Rockets held for him at the Toyota Center on Saturday without mentioning BJ. And to send condolences again, I got a chance to talk to his wife and some of his family briefly, but just to send condolences to his family, but also to the Houston Rockets, who are losing a big piece of who they've been. I mean, he's a part of their family, and he was, as I said, well respected around the National Basketball Association, definitely well respected in the Rocket circles and around the city of Houston. So a tough loss, you know, another nugget about what this 2020 is. And just a reminder, like, he went out for his daily bike ride. Tell people that you love them. Stop acting out about nonsense. You know, how you living, how you treating people. Keep those things in mind, because if 2020 hasn't taught us anything else, right? None of this stuff is promise. And when I say stuff, I mean life. Charles says that it's an indictment on the league that Lucas hasn't been a head coach since his last stint. I think it is interesting, Charles. You make a really good point, but there's others. I mean, like Mark Jackson. How has Mark Jackson not been mentioned in any head coaching searches since his stint in Golden State? How is that possible? There are other coaches around the league. There are people who felt some kind of way about Steve Kerr getting the job with New Jersey. I did not. I understood the criticism, but I also understand when you have relationships, you've been involved. I don't think it's all the same, but this could be the time for Lucas again, right? To get another shot. It really could. And, Mark Jackson, again, we'll see. I think whoever takes over this Rockets team, I hope I didn't call them Texans, this Rockets team, it's going to have their hands full because, as I mentioned, the personnel's geared towards small ball. So do you believe small ball can work in the postseason? Because we've never seen it work in postseason. And so is it about personnel? And the players bought in and said, yes, we can do it. Of course they have to do that, right? They were playing this system and believe they could win, but can you win with small ball? I really don't know. I don't know if you can, or I don't know whether you can or cannot. But what I will say is that the Rockets, the 2020-2021 version of the Rockets will be really interesting. And I think that it'd be prudent if Tillman would go ahead and hire a coach, right? To figure out what this team is going to do moving forward. It has been, now the league is saying that they're looking to maybe start the 2021 season December 22nd. Today is October 27th. That's less than 2 months away. So you got to have a coach because before you know it, it's going to be time for training camp and you got to figure out this roster. Are you going with what you had before? What can you do, if anything, to improve and make it better? And who are you going to be when you grow up, right? Who is this Rockets team going to be post Daryl Morey, post Mike D'Antoni? And for whatever people thought about Mike D'Antoni, he had probably gotten the most out of this Rockets team in recent years. Remember, prior to Mike D'Antoni, there was the JB Bickerstaff was the interim coach after they fired Kevin McHale to start the season, whatever that was, 5 years ago. I forget, I lose track. They've had Rick Adelman, Jeff Van Gundy has been here. And so, they're going to be without Mike D'Antoni, without Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey is also probably going to be remembered widely for his analytics and how he used it. That may be also something that will be a tarnish on his legacy, perhaps. I'm not really sure. And so depending on what you think about, we're going to try Chris Gardner again. We really want Chris. All right, Chris. Can you hear me?
No, I don't hear you.
So I hear you. That's so
odd. I have no headphones on, no mic. I'm using my laptop mic, and now I can't hear you at all.
Okay. Well, I'm going to type something in the chat box. Chris is going to, I don't know what to say, Chris, on your end. It's the internet. It's the Wi-Fi gods who don't want us to be able. So maybe you can listen with your headphones. Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay, and I hear you.
Okay, well, let's go with that then. All right. Okay.
I appreciate your diligence in trying to hear.
Troubleshooting.
I know, and I can't wait to hear later what happened. Before I go to you, I'm going to say this to Tony because I don't want to forget. I never like my Cowboys fans to feel left out. Tony wants to know if I think Jerry Jones should fire Mike McCarthy. I think Jerry Jones should pay Dak Prescott, and maybe he'd have better karma. I don't know. I mean, who cares? I don't know about Mike McCarthy. From what I hear from guys that cover the team, he's already lost the team. I don't know how that happens in 6 or 7 weeks. So he could be one and done, Tony. I have no real insight, but they're a mess. And I also think you should sign Colin Kaepernick. Let me just throw that out. Okay, back to basketball. So You and I both went. I mentioned, I was talking about BJ earlier. We both went to the memorial. I didn't see you, but on Saturday, I was just, I saw Daryl Morey there, obviously paying his respects. Daryl talked about how much BJ had meant to him over his career. If you had to, Chris, rate the Daryl Morey experiment? I mean, I said you got to give him credit. They never had a losing season. They were, in terms of winning games in the regular season, second to only the Spurs during his tenure, but he never got over the hump. And what do you say? There were flashes, right, of some brilliance along the way. But how do you look at the Daryl? How would you rate the Daryl Morey tenure as the head of the Rockets organization?
I give him a B.
Yeah.
B minus, not a B plus. One thing I do give Daryl credit for all the time is he never held on or waited too long to correct a mistake. He was, keep in mind, he got James Harden, greatest deal ever, but he also signed Ryan Anderson to that 4-year, $80 million contract. So, deals like that hurt flexibility, but he didn't hold on to Ryan much longer than he had to. When he saw a chance to let him go, he did that. I didn't like Daryl. I'm not a big person on analytics and the whole philosophy. I don't like it. I'm not sure why other NBA teams are following it so much, following the Rockets doing it, because the Rockets have not won a championship. I thought a copycat league was based on the success of the champion. The Rockets aren't a champion, haven't been a champion since 94, 95. So why are teams following the Rockets doing this? I don't understand that at all. But that whole philosophy, and plus he didn't develop young talent. He did not believe in draft picks. He especially did not believe in first-round picks unless it was a Yao Ming type, a top 2-3 pick in the first round. He felt he was smarter than everybody else. He felt like he could mine the overseas and find players that way and bring them over around that February, March deadline in time for the playoffs, like a Patrick Beverley. But he had so many guys like that who did not come in and make an impact positively for the team at all. But he had his philosophy. He stuck with it. I didn't agree with it, but he did have success in the regular season. Everybody can harp on. We all know what happened to Golden State in the 7-game series. But if Chris Paul wouldn't have got hurt, well, Chris Paul did get hurt.
Right.
And one thing is Chris Paul has been injury prone. So that was a risk that you knew going in, but also keep in mind from a Warriors perspective, Mr. Iggy did not play much in that series at all. So his impact was huge from the Warriors perspective. So we can sit here and say, if this, that, and other. What I know is Chris Paul got hurt and his absence hurt, and Rockets didn't have enough backbone depth to correct that, fill those big shoes. And it's funny how players always say when a teammate goes down, next man up. Well, if the players have that mindset, then why don't the fans have that mindset?
Right.
That's reality. I mean, Chris Paul did not get hurt on purpose. We all know that, but it happened. And that's the bottom line. It happened. And we knew that was a risk when the Rockets got him based on his injury history.
Before I ask you the next question, I'm going to pause with the Chris Paul for a moment. If you were management, would you have just made, I don't want to say made, would you have just pushed Chris Paul and James Harden to figure it out and play together? Or would you? That for me, that's what I would have done. I like Russell Westbrook. This is not an anti-Russell. I like Russell a lot off the court. I mean, I like him, who he is, and I like his tenacity on the court. But yeah, Chris, you and James are gonna have to work it out.
Yeah, Russ is relentless. And where is it written that teammates have to like each other?
Right.
I just want you to win on the court.
Right.
I don't want you to get in fights and things like that, but get it done on the court. And, the reports out, Yahoo's Vincent Goodwill reported that there was a rift between Chris Paul and James Harden. I never saw it in the locker rooms post-game when we were there. Not saying it didn't happen.
Right.
Clearly there was a chemistry problem there. And sometimes during the game, during timeouts, you would see James and Chris yell at each other. So what? That happens all the time in sports.
Yeah.
And if they couldn't get it done, that's on them. players, y'all are grown ups. Y'all are adults. Y'all got to figure it out. Win a championship.
Compensated grown ups.
Yes.
You know? I've covered sports a long time, and I covered those Rockets teams in 94, 95, and those guys weren't all best buddies.
Of
you
course.
know, like now they have great things to say about each other, but you know, there were some moments, you know, because back then we actually got to sit in and practice the whole time. We were much more involved. You saw a whole lot more of the happenings. And
for sure. We saw things in practice. Right. We saw things in practice that no one else saw.
Right.
We weren't going to run to, of course, there was no social media, but we weren't going to run out to the media and tell the world, oh, guess what? We saw today in practice. What happens in practice stays in practice.
Right. The relationships were different. I mean, I have much better relationships with guys from that era, the champions, the Clyde Drexlers and the Hakeem Olajuwons or Vernon Maxwell's than the guys now. It's a whole different, that's a whole nother show. But so
real quick, sis, real quick, if I may.
Yes.
The Lakers won the championship, and anybody who saw the finals saw LeBron James just get ticked off with Dwight Howard a lot. A lot. Every time Dwight messed up, Dwight was trying to be super tough. You could see LeBron just yelling at Dwight. They won a championship, didn't they? They figured it out. LeBron sat Dwight down, and LeBron did what he had to do, and he won a championship. And Dwight and LeBron after the game, oh, bro, I love you so much. Oh, thank you so much. They got it done.
They won a championship. Patrick makes an interesting point. He said the Rockets' critical area was not getting and utilizing the muscle of Montrezl Harrell. I agree, to support Capella when going against Green, Iguodala, and West. Getting rid of Capella and the use of the big man support was the beginning of the end. You know, we talk about this. That's a great point, you know, Patrick. We talk about this Rockets team when they won. If you want to be a copycat or something, right? They won with big guys. They had Hakeem Olajuwon and Otis Thorpe, you know, the first time. And then the next year they had Clyde, they brought in Clyde Drexler in the post. They had Robert Horry. They played an inside-out game, right? You had a Sam Cassell and a Kenny Smith. And
a mid-range game and Sam Cassell.
And Mario Ellie, you know, known for the kiss of death. I mean, you know, Chucky Brown, who I'm sure Charles Barkley remembers. We said, who is Chucky Brown that game in Phoenix?
Yes.
So I think that, but that was different leadership, right? That was prior to Daryl Morey. And I don't know that it really is about, because what Golden State did work for Golden State didn't mean that you can't win another way.
Exactly.
Because I just don't think you were going to ever beat Golden State at being Golden State.
Golden State has elite shooters. Two of the best three-point shooters in the history of the NBA. The Rockets' philosophy is not efficient three-point shooting. The Rockets' philosophy is volume three-point shooting. They want to take 50 or 60 and hope they make 20. Because the analytics say, well, you know, that three is more than two. So the more threes we take, we'll make them eventually. Well, you missed 27 in a row.
And you go one for a gazillion, like in 2018 in Game 7. What else you got?
And that's the problem.
Right, the beginning of the era of whatever this is now, beginning of the end. I am curious, though. They have now kind of backed themselves into the corner with this roster, with no draft picks, with no money under the cap, with an owner who is, quite frankly, leveraged financially because of his business, you know, the industry's in and the pandemic. How is this roster different? And by the way, when are you gonna hire a coach?
What is it down? It's down to 3 people. JVG recycling. I mean,
I don't even know why we're talking about Jeff Van Gundy.
I don't understand I mean, I guess Tillman has much respect for him. Good. Okay, whatever. Stephen Silas.
I don't know why, but it does here.
You know, he lives here. He loves the city. His wife loves the city. So okay, but been there, done that with him.
Make him a head coach. I mean, there are people that you could. I mean, you know, there's Jeff Van Gundy, John Lucas,
and Stephen Silas. Those are 3 finalists supposedly.
Right.
But to me, all 3 of those finalists, and no knock on them, all 3 of them say to me that Tillman's going to go cheap.
Well, I think we already knew that.
Yeah, well, we knew that, but it's proof.
Yeah.
I think fans, the diehard Rocket fans were hoping that Tillman was going to open up the checkbook. And I think Fagan reported that a month ago that Rockets were interested in Doc Rivers when he became available. For what? They were going to pay him $7 million. Please. I mean, we all knew that. That was not going to happen. That was
they weren't going to pay Tyronn Lue.
Nope.
You know, they're not going to. And so for me, if that's the case, if that's all you're considering, I absolutely say hire John Lucas. John Lucas has a relationship with the guys. That's going to be key. If those are the three, give me Lucas.
Well, you know, the players will have a say in the final, I'm not sure how much of weight the input that they'll have in the decision. Luke is a no-nonsense guy. Luke has the respect and the ear of the players. But in terms, sometimes I wonder, will the players abuse that respect and how Luke was, you know, Luke rode them, he rides them in practice, he talks about it, he exchanges the trash talk with them back and forth. We know, you and I know Luke. Luke does not hold his tongue. But when you move over to that number one seat, well, some players, Luke, man, last year you know, we were boys. You know, well, I'm number one now. I'm in charge. Will the players be their veteran team? We can all say these nice things. I'm just not.
Are they going to give it to Jeff Van Gundy? I don't see them giving him any real.
That's a Tillman move right there. I mean, I cannot see James and Russ
being
cool with that at all.
Yeah.
So and see if that happens. Will Tillman have lost the team right from the jump?
Probably.
Hiring Jeff Van Gundy. So I don't see that. Once it happens.
Let Raphael make the decision, who he's elevated to general manager. It's probably going to be a Tillman decision.
I mean, well, Tillman has been quoted that he trusts Raphael to make the decision. That's why he hired Raphael, promoted Raphael into the position to make the final choice. Okay, we'll see. If JVG is the hire, that I cannot believe that that's Raphael's choice.
I think if it's Raphael's choice, it's John Lucas.
So yeah, or I mean, either Luke or Stephen Silas. Because Stephen Silas, he does kind of match what they believe in terms of 3-point shooting importance, and with being with the Mavs and how much efficient they were in Dallas and things like that. So that I think could be a happy medium between the two, rather than JVG or Luke go with Stephen Silas. But once again, will the players respect Stephen Silas? So, it comes out. It's going to be James and Russ, who they like and who they're willing to run through a brick wall for. And coach-wise, that's Luke. But in terms of maximizing and getting the most out of the team and the three-point analytics and all that stuff, it might be Stephen Silas.
Yeah, but are you going to stick with the whole? I mean, and you're kind of back to you're kind of stuck with this roster because there's not a lot you can do unless you trade one of the big guys, which Tillman has said he's not going to do. You and I also know anything is always possible, but I think that either, it'd be tough to move in either one of them. I don't think you're going to move them, right?
Not this year. This coming season. Yeah.
You've got to get started with something, and so at some point, really, really soon, he's going to have to make a decision and hire a coach. They've got to figure out who they're going to be this year, right? Is it still small ball?
With this team and the possible start of the season now in December,
right?
You're running out of time to get a coach. You're running out of time to tweak the roster, since Tillman says he's not going to blow up the roster. So they got to make a decision quickly. Training camp may start now, December 1st, possibly. Right. So that's roughly, we're looking at 34 days, almost 5 weeks away.
Right.
So they're going to go with small ball, and then maybe, let's see, January, February, and things don't work. Okay, we got to do something now. We may have to make a trade at the deadline in February and say, okay, well, this didn't work.
Right.
Robert Covington is great for what he is.
Right. Right.
There's a reason Robert Covington has bounced around the league as many times as he has. He's a system player, and he's got to be in the right system.
It's got to be in the right system.
Obviously, as many players do, but you're a superstar. We all know Russ is not a 3-point shooter. We all know that.
Right.
the Rockets were best when Russ was attacking the basket in January and February and making mid-range shots. The Rockets were best when they abandoned three-point or bust and Russ took over the team.
Right. They were best then.
Yes.
That was when they had their run. That's when you saw them excel. And I don't think you can expect him to be anything other than that. He's not a great, that's not what he does. He's not going to ever be a great three-point shooter. That's not his game.
Right. It's not his game. And I wouldn't even want him to change his game at this point in his career. When Russ shoots more than three-pointers in a game, that's a plus for the opponent.
Right.
I want Russ getting to the basket, getting to the foul line. Obviously, he needs to make his free throws a bit better. And then taking smart mid-range shots. Because Russ is so competitive, he will sometimes abandon the team concept to go one-on-one at his opponent. And the up team's like, go ahead, Russ. We got no problem with you jacking up shots that you think you can make. And we're like, yeah, whatever. That's a low percentage shot. Fine. We'll rebound it and beat y'all down the floor.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we saw the Rockets be best when they were, when what you said, when Russ was slashing and dashing, that's his game. He could take anybody on one-on-one. He didn't care about size. He plays with reckless abandon, which is great, and sometimes it's not. But when he's sitting back shooting threes, it's not great for him or the team. And so they've got to figure out who they're going to be, because what this Rockets team doesn't want to be in 2021 is the Knicks. And I've heard some people around the league say, oh, the Rockets going to be the Knicks this year. I'm like, oh, no, don't say it, not the Knicks.
Yeah, that's a boring team to cover. And Russ, one of the things Russ does well is scoring the low post. But the analytics say a low post shot is a low percentage shot. If I'm close to the basket, I'm taking the shot that's close to the basket than a three-point shot. If Russ is shooting 60% in a post-up move, that's better than Russ shooting 30% from three-point range.
All day. Those are the analytics I like. Right? Yes. I know that 3 is worth more than 2, but if you don't make the 3, it's like 100% of nothing is still nothing. So why not get 60 or 70%? I think you and I are on the same page. We talk about this. We send the press row, every year, sitting there, and I think it'll be interesting. I hope that they make a decision soon, because I'm really curious about who will be the head coach and what tweaks, if any, they will make to this roster. Do you think that I have lost his name? What's the player that got kicked out of the bubble?
Danuel House.
Danuel House.
Yes.
I was gonna say Danuel House. You think he's coming back?
Probably. If I were running the team, he wouldn't be back, because he's got to earn the trust of his teammates now.
Yeah.
The way, it's the uncertainty about what happened. We may never know. He let his teammates down in their push for a championship. So as a player, as a teammate, I don't know how I can trust you. Yo, man, you left us. What you did hurt us. And they sorely missed him against the Lakers. Not saying he'd have been the reason why they would have won.
Right. Not that they would have won, but they would have been more competitive.
Yes.
Right. They missed his length and his athleticism.
Yes.
And, the Lakers may have eventually been champions anyway. But the point is, you did let your teammates down.
Correct.
You let them down because you didn't have any discipline.
That's it. Yeah.
So before I let you go, I want to talk about the ESPN bubble. There was a story the other day about college basketball, and they talked about tournament in a bubble and now not doing that. Your thoughts?
It's disappointing. It's surprising, because initially, when it was, discussed back in August, really, because based on the success that the NBA was having in the bubble, ESPN decided we're going to move our college events to Orlando and have a bubble type setting for our 8 to 10 events. But in the last week or so, ESPN started suggesting testing issues that the school's participants did not agree to. And one of them was if a player tests positive, that the school's gonna have to pay for the player staying there in Orlando 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
Schools were like, well, why is that at our expense? So ESPN, they never got on the same page regarding the testing protocol. U of H was supposed to play Texas Tech in one of the made-for-TV ESPN events in Orlando. That's not going to happen in Orlando. Yesterday, I was told they're still trying to make that happen in another city. Now, then last evening, it came out that because other two teams in that quadrant with U of H and Texas Tech was Gonzaga and Auburn. Well, now it's coming out that it is looking at playing Kansas rather on those same dates that were initially with U of H in their event. So in that case, I think it's now being discussed Gonzaga, Kansas, Auburn, and a fourth team. So that fourth team doesn't sound like it's going to be U of H. So in that case, I'm not sure what Coach Sampson is going to do to get non-conference opponents of that caliber. I'd like to see Texas Tech play U of H if it's a neutral site. Whatever. It's a good matchup in the fourth conference rivalry there. Texas Tech is a top 25 program, top 15. They're now nationally respected. U of H is now getting back to that national relevance again. They should be a preseason top 25 team also. But Coach Sampson, he wants to have quality non-conference opponents for the schedule. And he needs I'm not sure what he's going to do if Texas Tech and that falls through. There is still a possibility of the Houston, one of my colleagues, he's trying to put together a bubble type event here in Houston.
Really?
I'm not sure, based on what happened in Monday with Orlando and the cancellations and some of those teams not looking for a place to play. Mm-hmm. Some of those schools have contacted him. I'm not sure if U of H is one of those schools, but they might have to be because they may not have any other options for good quality opponents for the non-conference schedule. So,
and they got to figure it out pretty soon.
They got to figure it out. They only got a month away. The college season starts November 25th. So if Coach Sampson wants some quality non-conference teams, he's got to do something. He's got enough sources across the country to try to make it happen. But you and I know COVID testing protocol is no joke. So you got to figure that out too. That's one of the main things you got to figure out is a protocol for that. So that is still one of the biggest issues for all the non-conference schedules that teams are trying to put together.
Chris, with the Houston Roundball review, as always, thank you. And it was super last minute that he jumped on. And we got to do this more frequently because you're my basketball guy. So thank you for jumping on. Thank you for troubleshooting and figuring out how to be heard and to hear at the same time.
It was different. I don't know what I did. I mean, I didn't do anything different. I restarted my laptop, and then when I came back, it still didn't work. But then I plugged in this new headset and microphone. It worked. So I'm not going to take credit for it. This finally worked.
Well, I appreciate you. I'll talk to you offline because there's a couple things I want to ask you about. But as always, thank you. And,
my pleasure.
And thanks for letting me know too. You were the first person to let me know about BJ's memorial. So I really was glad I was able to make that. All right.
I was glad I received it. I would look for it on the Rockets website, and I didn't see it when I finally got it. I wanted to share it with folks that I knew BJ like you and I did.
Yeah, that was, man. All right. And on a good note, we'll find out what your Cougars are going to do. I don't really talk about them, but I make some allowances because that's your school and you do cover them. And so I am curious about what's going to happen, right? Because I'm curious about how it's going to impact the entire NCAA schedule. Like this is going to be an evolving conversation, I think, until even once the schedule is set, it may not be set as we've even seen with college football this year. So,
right. I don't see any way that a team plays a full schedule.
No.
They may have 25 games on the schedule. They're not going to play 25 games. So I don't see that at all. Even in conference play.
Oh, well, on that note, all right, Chris, I will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right. Make sure you follow the Houston Roundball Review. He's got great information, everything basketball, men and women's. He is awesome about finding the information, sharing it, telling those stories. And before we go today, I wanted to, I promised you a little bit of a civics lesson, right? And last week we talked about, how a bill becomes a law, right? I know that seems like what? And so there's been a lot of information or misinformation, if you will, about, let me show this, and I'm going to show it here, about the different plans, plans for, Black America. And so I'm not really going to spend a lot of time talking about Ice Cube, because I don't want to do that. But here's what I think is important. We have got to become more politically savvy, and that's just about being informed, right? And there's ways to do it. Look at what people look at the plans. And I'm saying this, I'm a Black person, I'm a Black American, African American, so I do care about what the agenda is. And I just want to show you these bullet points, because there's been, when people say that, well, there was no plan in place. So there's a few plans. There's a number of plans, because there have been people who have been doing this work for decades, right? They're activists on the ground who have been fighting the Black Lives Matter fight, who've been fighting the legislative fight, the Congressional Black Caucus. I may not agree with everything they do, but there's a plan there, right? The current administration has refused to meet with them. And there's also this plan from one of the candidates, being Joe Biden. And so I wanted to highlight a few things in it. So the bullet points are these, and I'm gonna go to just one, to two pieces of it and give you a little more detail. So here are the bullet points. And it's like a 22-page plan, like 10,000 words. I've read it all. I encourage you to go read it in chunks. And so not just because it may inform you if you haven't voted between what to do between now and next Tuesday, but it should also inform you beyond that, if in case this is the eventual candidate. And if he's not, maybe it shows you these are some of the kind of policies that we should look for pressing whoever is in charge, whatever administration is in. We've got to be more strategic, okay? So the Biden plan for Black America talks about economic mobility of African Americans. We're talking about the racial, the wealth gap and the income gap, expanding access to high quality education. There's inequity in our education system, right? So that's going to come a couple ways. It's got to hire a really good Secretary of Education, and they've got to put some plans and policies in place that addresses our neighborhoods, our schools, and our kids. And then there's got to be really good investments in terms of ending health disparities. It is not, we shouldn't be really surprised that African Americans have been really hit hard by COVID, right? We are dying at 2 times the rate. We get the virus more often, and it's because of health disparities, and it's based on a lot of cultural and systemic issues and investments in our healthcare, which is limited. And he talks about justice, and these are just the bullets. Each one of these bullets has an entire plan attached to it, and making the right to vote and the right to equal protection for African Americans. Make the right to vote and the right to equal protection for African Americans. Like the Voting Rights Act is important, and it needs to be renewed. Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to bring up that I want to talk about. So investing in African American businesses and entrepreneurs. I'm a small business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. Approximately 4% of small business owners are African American, even though we make up about 13% of the population, right? So we need equal access to credit and capital. We don't get that. And there's a number of reasons why. He's talking about expanding the new markets tax credit, because that has been cut. It has helped draw tens of billions of dollars in new capital to low-income communities by providing tax credits to investors. I mean, I could go on and on about what this plan says, and I will say this to you, it is absolutely worth reading. There is a plan. Oh, and there's something else. I think this is also important, because we talk about the justice piece right? Let me get to that because I want to share that before we get out of here. And each week I'll bring up a part of it because I think it's a great plan to work from. Because the key is once the election is over and we figure out who's going to be, what administration is going to be in office, we've got to push them, right? We've got to push them. And so if there's plans in place, this is always my argument, look at the plans that are well thought out and go look and see which pieces of that you would like to see supported with legislation, because nothing happens without legislation. Let me get to the bottom of the plan. I want to talk about the social. We talk about environment, safe drinking water. That happens in our neighborhoods. They're not dumping stuff in Bel Air and River Oaks and West University. So addressing environmental justice is really important. There are a number of things at any rate. I'm not going to read the whole plan to you. But hey, good morning, Michael. Thank you. I appreciate you being a part of the show today. But I do encourage all of you to go read that plan. If there's somebody else's plan that you're interested in, read their plan too. Don't let anybody tell you what you should think about something you haven't read. That's my encouragement. Here, I believe the people that listen to Chalk Talk, you guys are the cream of the crop, right? Because you care about interesting information, you want facts, you want the truth, and you spend time with me. So I believe that you are interested in pushing yourselves a little bit. And you might think, I don't have time for all that. Listen, you got to read it and know it for yourself, whatever it is. And so I just encourage you to go check out the plan. Who is going to be best for you, your family, and your community, for your pocketbook, for your health, for your life, your quality of life moving forward? And what are some things that we should really, as a community, be talking about strategically in terms of what we need to have a better quality of life, education, access to capital for businesses, a better environment in terms of our neighborhoods, all of those things. Find it. If it's in the Platinum Plan, pick out some pieces and say, these are the couple things I'm going to be pressing my congressional leaders, my senators, my governor, my administrator. These are the things I'm going to take and be pushing for. If it's from the Biden plan, Lift Every Voice plan, I see some stuff here that I'm going to look at. And so whatever happens next week, whatever happens in terms of the election, these are some things, because listen, that's not when the work ends. That is when the real work begins, right? You got to vote and get people in office who are going to vote for your interests. Okay. Right now, most of the people in office are not voting for do not have our best interest at heart. I feel confident saying that, although I never tell you who to vote for. I feel really confident saying that the current Senate majority does not have the best interest at heart of most Americans, and especially of Black people. I'm just saying. So what do we do about that? We got to press people. People don't make change because they just feel like it. They've got to be pressed and moved to do it. So it can't stop with the election, whether it's the Trump administration that's still in office or a new Biden-Harris administration. They too will have to be pressed and reminded that, hey, these are some things we need for our community, for our neighborhoods, for our schools, for our businesses. All of that. So I just wanted to say that. I went over a little bit, but that's a little bit of our civics lesson for today. I will be here next Tuesday. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to spend Election Day. I'll do the show, of course, and then I may move around the city and do some little live pop-ups to see what I can tell you about what's happening in town. The Governor Abbott is sending troops to 5 cities. Obviously, Houston's one of them, being the biggest city in the state of Texas. It's Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. I forget the fifth. I don't know if it's Fort Worth or I'm not sure what the fifth city is, but just in case. And so I want to be out because I think it's important that we have different people telling you with different perspectives, different voices, bringing you stories about what's happening. So I'm going to be out in the mix. And I also want to see if there's, the lines are super long and, what I can do, maybe go to one of the polling places in one of the urban neighborhoods in case there's long lines where I can drop off water and snacks. I don't know yet. I'm figuring out who's going to roll with me. Somebody who is been practicing smart COVID, has been having smart COVID practices because I'm not really hanging out with people is moving around a whole lot. But I will let you know. I'll keep you posted throughout the week. And I encourage you to have a plan. If you have not voted, okay, of course you must vote. If you have voted, help and encourage somebody else to vote. Giving somebody a ride to the poll. There's some drive-through locations. If you've got some elderly people in your family, in your neighborhood, in your life, in your church, wherever you can find someone who needs some help, there are places that you can go. All right, there are places that you can go. So thank you, Charles. Yeah, there must be civic action. It does not stop with your vote. And for those of you who are voting for the first time, I commend you. I appreciate the fact that so many of you are voting for the first time. That's awesome. And now I want you to take the next step. And we have to have some civic action. All right, we got to put some action behind that. But first vote. We got to vote. Figure out what, and maybe it's just one point from Biden's plan or the Platinum Plan or whatever plan you choose that is really important to you, that you're going to push civically, then do that. But just don't let it stop on Election Day. That is where we've made mistakes in the past. Thank you, Emma Yancey. I appreciate you praying for my mom. She's watching today, so I wanted her to see your note. She is in good hands in the hospital, and Sylvia's with her today. Love you too, my sister friend. All right, I apologize for going over a little bit today, but I needed to get that little civics lesson in, and we wanted to talk Rockets as well as Texans. I thank you, Chris Gardner, for making sure that he could get on. Troubleshooting, I appreciate that, and he brings a great insight because basketball is what he covers exclusively. And I like to bring in people who are experts in what they do. With that said, make sure that you go do something kind for yourself and something kind for somebody else. Wear your mask, practice social distancing, and be sure to wash your hands. Make a plan. If you have not voted, you got to vote. You got to vote. Wherever you are in the country, you have to vote. And if you have voted, help somebody else vote. All right. And then start looking at your legislative action, what you want to do. Good morning, Sunseria. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Chalk Talk. Figure out what your plan of action is. Be strategic, be informed, be safe, and take care. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. Make sure you follow me also on Twitter at Kim Y. Davis. I do a lot of real-time updates there, and on Instagram at kim.y.davis. I'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great week, everybody.